I was very lucky in that sense that my mother's side of the family was mostly consisted of very voracious readers. And my grandfather used to send me a book almost every week. And he would always say that, listen, at the end of the day, fine, you're a businessman and you will run after Lakshmi, but at the end of the day, remember that without Saraswati, Lakshmi is of no use. And so that is where really I think the entire desire to read.
But as a child, were you surrounded by books?
Absolutely.
You were?
Absolutely. And that was pretty much because of my grandfather. But honestly speaking, while I was a voracious reader, I had no idea that I was a writer. Even when I went to the States for my MBA, I had written a couple of articles which were probably maybe 4 pages long or something, but nothing more serious than that, honestly. When the visit to Srinagar happened sometime around 2005, and I ended up starting to write about that particular shrine, that's the time that I was blown away. I said, my God, how have the first time that I wrote 3,000 or 4,000 words, I was completely blown away by the fact that I'd written that many number of words. So I think somewhere it was lurking there at the back of my head. It's just that I didn't know it.
Do you now think that it was part of your destiny? Right? You believe in destiny to start with?
To start with, I must tell you, we had a very beautiful discussion. A friend of mine and I had a discussion about this whole thing about karma and destiny barely about 10 days ago. And I was talking about the fact that when I wrote the Rosabal line, I was a firm believer in karma. So if you read the Rosabal line, it talks about multiple lifetimes of characters, and that the past karma is affecting them in their present lifetimes. And so in fact, the fact that Ashwin Sanghi believes in karma comes across very clearly in that first book. In this last book that I was writing, my entire focus was to talk about how was the universe created. Is the creation of the universe spoken about in the Upanishads? How does what Einstein said relate back to the Big Bang, and how does the Big Bang then relate back to the Upanishads? So sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, we also have Dino Moria joining us on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for him, everybody. Dino Moria. I think before we move on with the discussion, what we can now do is, since we have most of our panelists here, we have Anil, we have Dino, I'd like Gautam to also join us on stage from Westland. And we can have the official unveiling of the book.
No, I think we should finish the discussion first,
yeah,
and then we can unveil it. Lovely. We can't stop.
All right. No problem, no problem.
So, we'll carry on for,
yeah.
So, at that point of time, when I started looking into this third book, the Krishna Key, the interest for me was that do the Upanishads already cover the creation of the universe? And we know that the Big Bang Theory talks about a singularity from which the entire universe is created and expands, and then eventually at the end of the day will eventually collapse back into a singularity. And when I started reading up all of this, I wondered to myself, I said, well, look, at the end of the day, I'm also just a bundle of energy. Probably I have some element of intelligence and some level of memory attached to that bundle of energy. But I'm really wondering as to whether that bundle of energy, when it leaves my body, when I die, will there truly be something or someone at a higher level judging me and saying, hey, listen, you did that wrong, you did that wrong, you did that wrong. And now, so therefore, this is what is in store for you. I'm just wondering as to whether we are just living in a world which is something like a cauldron, where millions and millions of bundles of energy are all eventually going back and joining up together with the divine. So today, if you ask me, am I a believer in karma? I have my doubts. But it's very possible that by the time that I write my next book, I may actually again become a believer in karma. So,
Because without that, there'll be no book. But do you believe, after you've done your research and you've written this book, do you actually believe that there was a Krishna figure which existed historically? And the Mahabharata took place, and all the events that happened.
Yeah.
Maybe obviously there's a lot of myth making.
Yes.
The huge powers that Krishna was ascribed to may not have been there.
Right.
There may have been this historical figure who was very important and did a lot of brave things.
Right. There is the view that a myth actually is something in the nature of a lie which eventually tells you a deeper truth. Maybe if you were to take that literally, not figuratively. Figuratively, what it tells you is that, well, a myth is trying to teach you something. But if you were to take it literally, that probably it is telling you a truth, maybe in a historical sense. Maybe that there is a kernel of history in the mythology. That when we peel away the layers and we go deeper and deeper into history, we will have more of mythology and less of history available to us. And if we were to actually scrape it, use sandpaper and scrape that myth, probably what we will be left with is a sliver of truth, which is that sliver of historical fact, as it were. So I genuinely believe that if you talk about a figure like Krishna, about whom reams and reams have been written, I find it impossible, Anil, that unless there was some great person who truly existed by that name, I find it impossible that so much would have then thereafter been written about him. So that in itself is a pointer to the fact that there was a historical figure of Krishna. And we all know that in India we have a tendency to almost deify, we idolize. There is a strong tradition of hero worship. I mean, Dino knows what it feels like, the hero worship, but I mean, it happens all the time in India.
In this case, it's called Dino worship. I like the joke.
So, it's basically, Sachin Tendulkar is God. Amitabh Bachchan is God. And in fact, the other day I was reading an article which talked about a mandir, I think in Calcutta somewhere, where there is actually an idol of Amitabh Bachchan where everyday puja is done.
I was just thinking of what you were saying earlier. 1,000 years from now, the 1,000th
That's right.
anniversary of Crossword, there'll be two people sitting here saying, did Sachin Tendulkar actually exist?
Exactly. Now you've hit the nail on the head. So I think to a very great extent there was that historical character, and then over a period of time people started worshipping him. We know from Greek accounts, which from the time of Chandragupta Maurya, we know that there was Krishna worship happening even at that time. To my mind, the possibility that there wasn't any character by the name of Krishna, now whether he had all the qualities that are attributed to him is a matter of speculation. So for example, there are those who say that, well, Krishna was nothing else but a brand mascot for the agrarian way of life, because the word Krishna derives from Krishi, which is agriculture. So probably it was just a mascot in order to shift people towards the agrarian way of life. Who knows? But to my mind, it seems highly unlikely that Krishna would be mentioned in, the Mahabharata. You may say that, well, this was a work of fiction by sage Vyas.